been charged with as president is increased giving and external revenues. So I'm very pleased to announce that the GSU Foundation has, for the first time, record back-to-back $1 million revenues. And FY21, 36,700, and to date for FY22, we have raised $1,124,889. And I want to acknowledge that the 21 year and the 22 year, we're doing COVID. So I think we're very pleased about these successes in the foundation. And last but not least, we are all here to promote student success. And one of the ways we do that is through scholarships. I'm pleased to announce that the foundation's scholarship giving has also increased. In academic year 2021, the foundation awarded $209,200 in scholarships to 252 students. And this past academic year, that number was increased to 339 students who received $331,250 in scholarships. That concludes the essence of my report. I do have more news, but I'm sensitive to the time of the board meeting today, but these are some of the highlights that I wanted to share publicly with the campus and, of course, with the board.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Thank you. Questions, comments, trustees? That was a thumbs up from Trustee Tibois for those.
Up to good work on the fundraising.
Yes, thank you for that full report.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, so now we turn to our action items for today. First is proposed resolution 2239. May I have a motion to approve resolution 2239?
I move.
Approval, Master.
Second.
Okay. Dr. Bradford, will you please present the motion or the
Yeah.
resolution?
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Sebastian and members of the committee. The university uses a quality-based selection process to select engineering firms. These engineering firms typically provide mechanical engineering services or structural engineering services for capital projects for the university. The university followed all state procurement rules and laws. And so based upon the recommendation of President Green, we ask for your approval to award 3-year contracts to be used on an as-needed basis to each of the 5 engineering firms listed in the resolution in an amount not to exceed $750,000 per firm during the contract period. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, no questions. And just so everyone is aware, this did come up at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting with the other approvals that were on the consent agenda, but there was a last-minute change, which is why we pulled it out and are presenting it here. But the full due diligence has been reviewed by the Budget and Finance Committee, and it was approved before the change to be presented here, if that makes a difference for anyone. So the question on the floor is the approval of master contracts with.
Trustee Kadaris?
Aye.
Trustee Sebastian?
Yes.
Trustee Tibois?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 2239 has passed. Next is proposed Resolution 2244, which was recommended by the Governance and Nominations Committee for consideration by the full board. This relates to approval of the proposed restated Board of Trustee bylaws. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Ms. Nohos, will you please present this resolution?
Thank you, Vice Chair Sebastian. Good morning, trustees, President Green, faculty, staff, and community members. The bylaws were last updated 10 years ago, and it's a practice, good governance practice to regularly review them and update them to ensure that they are providing appropriate guidance for the governance of the board. So this consideration has been within the purview of the Governance and Nomination Committee for over a year now. Under Chair Brookins' guidance, the bylaws have been entirely restated and voted by the committee for recommendation for passing by the full board. At page 152 of the book, you'll see the restated bylaws in full as suggested. And at page 161, you'll see what is a very messy red line comparing the two because there were quite substantial changes. I won't try to summarize all of the changes, but to hit just a few highlights. The committee voted to remove the term limit on the chair regarding how many terms the chair could serve consecutively. They voted to create more flexibility for standing committees by removing that formally from the bylaws and permitting those committees to be formed on an as-needed basis. They removed some formality around the elections process to give the board more flexibility and discretion on how to conduct the election process. And they added two very common clauses for all boards, which were an indemnity clause for trustees and employees of the university and a conflict of interest clause. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I'm sure Trustee Brookins would all be happy to take any questions as chair of that committee. Any questions, trustees? I am a member of that committee, and we definitely spent, as is Trustee Tavoas and Trustee Cogan, we definitely spent a lot of time on this, and I'd like to thank Therese also for the heavy, heavy lift. That doesn't even include the document. That just means dealing with us. So thank you. See, the question on the floor is the approval of the proposed restated Board of Trustee bylaws. Penny, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Brookins?
Yes.
Trustee Ceballos Kendall?
Yes.
Trustee Colbert?
Yes.
Trustee Caderas?
Aye.
Trustee Sebastian?
Yes.
Trustee Tavoas?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 2244 has passed. Congratulations. Okay. And now we turn to proposed Resolution 2249, approval of tenure, which is recommended by the Academic Affairs Committee for consideration by the full board. May I have a motion?
I move.
I second.
Thank you. Provost Schneller, please present this resolution.
Thank you, Chair Sebastian. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to share with you today the list of candidates who were recommended by President Green in consultation with the Department and Division Personnel Committees, the University Personnel Committees, Department Division Chairs, College Deans, and myself for tenure at Governor State University. We have all but one of the candidates with us in the audience today. The one who's not able to be with us is traveling on university business at a conference. So I'm going to take a moment, as is tradition, to announce the name of the candidate, ask the tenure candidate to rise so you can see to whom it is you are, who you are honoring with tenure in this important moment, and tell you a little bit about each one. So we'll begin with Assistant Professor Dr. Vicky Coffey. Dr. Coffey teaches a wider range of classes in the social work department, informed by her years of executive leadership in the field of social work. She is an advisor in the department for approximately 20 of our Master of Social Work students each semester. Dr. Coffey's research focuses on mass incarceration and reentry with the related topic of cancer health disparities among incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals. And also, she studies violence against women. Her publications in these fields have garnered her respect across the nation. Her service to the university and the field has created a lasting impact on our campus and has certainly strengthened the social work program over the years. So we are honored to have Dr. Vicky Coffey with us today. Our second tenure candidate is Dr. Ting Ting He. Dr. He is in the Division of Marketing, Management, and Entrepreneurship in the College of Business. She teaches a broad range of courses in marketing. Her research areas include market competition and the various effects that exist in competition, as well as behaviors of consumers in the marketplace and related organizations. Her service to the university is recognized as she serves on multiple standing committees. She provides significant service within her discipline, including regular service as editor and reviewer for journals, which include the International Journal of E-Business Research. Dr. He. Our third candidate is Assistant Professor Alice Keene in the Division of Accounting, Finance, MIS, and Economics, also in the College of Business. Ms. Keene serves as course leader for Business Law 1, Business Law 2, Estate Planning, and Employee Benefits and Retirement Planning. Her research and publications focus on tax and business law issues. She serves as the faculty advisor for the Accounting, Finance, and Economics Club from 2016 to 2020. She was awarded a Faculty Excellence Award in September of 2021. Externally, Professor Keene is the co-editor-in-chief of the Midwest Law Journal. Prior to working as a faculty member at Governor State University, Alice Keene served as the Deputy General Counsel for Income Tax Litigation at the Illinois Department of Revenue and as an Assistant Attorney General supervising the Civil Prosecutions Unit in General Law at the Illinois Attorney General's Office. Dr. Alice Keene. Our fourth candidate is Assistant Professor Timothy Pettigo, who is in the Division of Psychology and Counseling within the College of Education. Dr. Pettigo is the coordinator of the Masters in Psychology program, as well as the division's Curriculum Committee Chair. His students note that they appreciate his ongoing efforts to bolster their studies in initiating a mentorship program for students, coordinating student reviews with faculty members, and facilitating interventions when needed. He serves as the co-chair of Mental Health and Well-Being Advisory Committee and is known widely in the field for his active presentation agenda. Dr. Pettigo. Our next candidate is Assistant Professor Natalia Rector, who is the one I mentioned who was unable to join us today. She's in the Department of Health Administration and the College of Health and Human Services. Dr. Rector provides leadership within the Bachelor of Health Administration program and primarily teaches undergraduate health administration courses. Her research interests include social media, and most recently, her attention has turned to the impact of COVID-19 on healthcare. She is the co-chair of the Committee on Assessment and Student Learning Outcomes here at the university, known as the CASLO Committee, and she serves on several other committees at the university. And our last but not least candidate alphabetically is Dr. Amy Viacula. Dr. Viacula is an assistant professor in the Division of Education and the College of Education. Dr. Viacula is the coordinator of secondary English education and teaches courses in both the College of Arts and Sciences and the College of Education. Her chair highlights in her review that Dr. Viacula was instrumental in relaunching the secondary programs for which Governor State University is now starting to see benefits. At the university level, Dr. Viacula serves on the executive committee of the Faculty Senate and serves as chair of the Academic Program Review Committee. She brings her dedication to teaching to the public as she co-hosts the podcast, Teaching and Learning, Theory versus Practice, with Dr. Amy and Dr. Joy, who is Dr. Joy Patterson, also in the Division of Education. Dr. Viacula. Thank you all. So now, based on the recommendation of President Cheryl Green, as indicated in the recommendation for promotion and tenure memo of May 18th, 2022, which has been previously shared with the board, we seek formal board approval for the awarding of tenure to these GSU faculty members.
Thank you, Dr. Schneller. The question on the floor is the approval of tenure for Assistant Professors Vicky Coffey, Ting Ting He, Alice Keene, Timothy Pettigo, Natalia Rector, Amy Viacula.
Yes.
Penny, will you please call the roll?
Yeah, can you please first remind me who motioned and seconded?
Oh, I don't remember.
I motion it.
And the second?
I think it was me.
Thank you, sorry about that.
That's all right.
Trustee Brookins?
Yes.
Trustee Ceballos Kendall?
Yes.
Trustee Koger?
Actually, the student trustee does not vote on this one.
Trustee Caderas?
Yes.
Trustee Sebastian?
Yes.
Trustee Tebow?
Yes.
Congratulations, the resolution has passed.
That's good stuff.
Okay, and now we consider proposed resolution 2250, approval of notice of intent to renegotiate the presidential employment agreement. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Nohos, please present, oh, is it you or is it Jim? Okay, please present this resolution.
Thank you. As the board knows, the board has a 3-year contract with President Green for her employment. That contract has a term limit that expires next June 30th, and that contract has a requirement that if the board intends to attempt to renegotiate that contract or an amended or changed contract with Dr. Green, that it give her notice of its intent by July 1 of this year. So by this motion, the board will be approving the administration's giving of notice, written notice of the board's intent to attempt to negotiate a continued contract with Dr. Green.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from trustees? Okay, the question on the floor is the approval of giving notice of intent to renegotiate the presidential employment agreement. Penny, please call the roll.
Trustee Brookins?
Yes.
Trustee Ceballos Kendall?
Yes.
Trustee Koger?
Yes.
Trustee Caderas?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Trustee Sebastian?
Yes,
Trustee Tebow?
Yes.
thank you. Resolution 2250 has passed. Thank you. Our last resolution for today is proposed Resolution 2251, and it honors the service of the Student Senate President, Ileana Manrique, who unfortunately is not with us today, even though her best intentions, but we still want to honor her service nonetheless. So trustee Caderas, as board secretary, will you please read the resolution?
Absolutely.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I forgot to have a motion. May I please have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I just assumed we were going to sail right through that. Sorry about that. Now, trustee Caderas, as board secretary, will you please read the resolution?
You sure?
Now I'm sure.
Okay. Resolution 2251, titled Honoring the Service of Student Senate President Ileana Manrique. Whereas the Governor State University Board of Trustees was created on January 1st, 1996 by Public Act 89-4 to operate, manage, control, and maintain Governor State University in accordance with the rights, powers, and duties vested by law in the board. And whereas the board is comprised of 8 members, 7 of whom are appointed by the Governor of Illinois with the advice and consent of the Senate, and 1 whom is a Governor State University student selected by their peers. And whereas Ileana Manrique, a senior in the Interdisciplinary Studies program minoring in accounting, arrived at GSU via the dual degree program, having earned an associate's in arts degree with a concentration in early childhood education from Richard J. Daley College. And whereas at Daley College, she served as vice president of fellowship in the PTK chapter and played college soccer for 2 years. And whereas at GSU, Ileana is a member of the Student Education Association, the Kappa Delta Pi Honor Society, and the Tau Sigma National Honor Society, among others, and is currently serving as Student Senate President from October 2021 through June 2022, having previously served as Senate Vice President. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Trustees of Governor State University that Ileana Manrique be formally recognized and commended for her service as Student Senate President, for her commitment to the role of Student Senate President as a representative of all students, for her dedication to the university as a whole, providing sound guidance and perspective, and for the spirit of committed governance which she brought to the task.
Thank you. The question on the floor is the approval of the resolution honoring the service of Ileana Manrique. Penny, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Brooklyn?
Yes.
Trustee Cevallos Kendall?
Yes.
Trustee Coker?
Yes.
Trustee Caderas?
Aye.
Trustee Sebastian?
Yes.
Trustee Tabolo?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 2251 has passed. And I also want to take this opportunity, even though Ileana was unable to attend many of our meetings, our full board meetings, so much of her work, like all of us, is done outside of the meetings. And I know she is a leader among her peers, and she's made a big impact, and we really thank her for her service. I also want to reiterate my recognition of Trustee Koger, as well as Cheryl Jones Harper, her service. Cheryl, I apologize for missing that at the beginning, but you have been the Civil Service Senate during all of our tenure as trustees, and we really appreciate your dedication to the university, to the employees of the university, and we can always feel your passion, and you raise the issues that we need to know about. So I want to thank you for your service as well. And if the trustees wanted to share anything about any of the people that we're honoring today, I don't want to just take the floor, so, although I usually do. but-
I think I share your sentiments,
Yeah.
and they were expressed very well. We do appreciate your contribution, your input to the board activities.
Thank you. Okay, that's it for our action items, but the meeting is not over. We have several information items, and our first is a report by Trustee Kevin Brookins, Chair of the Governance and Nominations Committee, regarding the August election of trustee board officers, representatives, committee chairs, and committee members, et cetera. Trustee Brookins?
Thank you, Chair Sebastian, and I will be brief with an update on the upcoming process for electing officers, committee members, and chairs, as well as our board representatives. As in the past, at the August meeting, the board will elect officers, committee members, and chairs, as well as those board representatives to fill each of those roles for the next year. The Governance and Nomination Committee is responsible for preparing a slate of candidates to fill each position. The slate of candidates gets distributed 10 days before the August meeting and is included in the board book. Nominations and self-nominations are allowed. As chair of the Governance and Nominations Committee, I'm requesting that trustees submit their nominations to me by Tuesday, July 15th. Tuesday, July 15th. I'm glad I'm seeing everyone write that date down. Thank you very much. And I will inform or share that information with the other committee members. That will give the committee sufficient time to prepare a slate of candidates for each position to be included again in the August board book. Are there any questions? July 15th.
We got it, July 15th, 2022, right?
2022, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we will hear, thank you, Trustee Brookins. Next, we will hear from Trustee Caderas, Chair of the Human Resources Committee, about the status of the President's annual review process. Trustee Caderas?
Thank you, Acting Chair. Appreciate it. As this board knows, we've been undergoing a process for conducting a performance review on Dr. Green's activities here in year 2 of her 3-year initial employment agreement. As you also know, we brought in outside experts to help us through this process. First year, we relied on self-generated information, which was voluminous and quite a chore to put together. So this year, we're looking out for outsiders to try to help us and engage in this process in a more structured, orderly manner with industry experts taking the way. With Josh Allen's help, we were able to line up a contractor from the American Governing Board to help us through this process. It's well underway as the process continues on. You'll be advised that I'm in regular communication with not only Josh, but also Dr. Taggart, Mick Taggart, who's conducting the actual work. So by the end of this, I'm going to take your highlight here, dear Josh, but by the end of next month, we'll have a formal structure in place for what the structure of the review is going to be. That will be sent around to the Board of Trustees for the review and comments in a kind of expedited way, because we want to get this finalized by the end of June, so we have in place at least the structure for the analysis, and that will take place in the next subsequent months, so we have plenty of time to make a final recommendation as contractually obligated by the board by the end of this annual calendar year. Kind of said a lot there. Josh, we here take a couple minutes and kind of give the update on the status of where we are, if there's anything we need to be aware of at this point.
No, so I was able to meet with Trustee Kaderis yesterday. All the
Do we,
documents.
do we need him at the mic?
We
Does he need to be at a mic so the people online can hear?
got an extra up here.
Thank you. So like Trustee Kaderis said, we were able to meet all the deadlines so far as highlighted in the contract from the draft assessment to the draft survey instrument and other key pieces. We've been able to regularly meet with Dr. McTaggart from AGB to provide input. We have received some generalized input from them, and communication has been going back and forth. So as we move forward now and have all three instrument pieces in place, in concert with Dr. Green and the board, we can finalize this process on time. And I don't see any reason that we would not meet the deadlines that you guys asked for when we started this process.
Thank you.
Well, that's a summary of the process as we sit today. We're waiting for the structure to be finalized. We'll send around for distribution, and at that time, I'll send a quick note attached to us that we want a quick review at your pleasure, so we can get this wrapped up and move on towards the actual, the conduction of the actual assessment itself, not just the laying out of the structure. And the intent of the structure is to put something in place that we can look to in subsequent years also. We don't have to, unless circumstances change, we're hoping we don't need to change each year's analysis or review based on whatever. So our hope or desire is to put something in place with the recognition that as things change, we have to be flexible as a board to recognize and acknowledge and move things forward that makes sense for us to do so. That concludes my report. Yeah.
Thank you. Questions or comments, trustees? Thank you for your thoroughness. And then the next information item is a report on the Civil Rights Tour. We are joined by Dr. Phyllis West, Director of the Social Justice Initiative, and Dr. Amy Viacula. I did it the second time. I did it the first time better. Assistant Professor in the College of Education, who will speak with us about the recent Civil Rights Tour they took with GSU students. Some of those students are also joining us today. I'm not sure if I have everyone, but Ty-Yin Simmons and Zamar Tompkins. Are there any other students that I need to recognize? No? Okay, you'll say. So we are really looking forward to hearing about your experience. Thank you.
We're going to ask you to please stand, all of the students here.
Well, thank you for your willingness for trying to come up. Appreciate that.
Yes. You may have a seat. And you'll see them in the video, and the only reason why we're going to have to move because of the video, and we don't want to be in the middle of the trailer. Thank you for inviting us. This has been a wonderful journey and a great way to start the Social Justice Initiative here at GSU. We thought very deeply of the importance of creating a beloved community. We were first invited by Dr. Joan Harrell of Auburn University in Alabama, in Auburn, Alabama. She started the beloved community there. It's very seldom that you see a beloved community within universities. And so this is by far one of the first, and probably one of the first in the Midwest. We're excited that our students joined in and said, yes, we're interested. We want to learn more about civil rights. We want to learn more about social justice. We started in Alabama, but we'll shortly tell you we're planning to go all over in terms of studying. I'm going to let Amy talk about the demographics of our students. I'll just say that we participated with Auburn University, Tuskegee University, and Southern Community College in Alabama. We were the only Midwest school. Amy?
Students submitted video essays along with a brief statement telling why they wanted to be part of the Beloved Community Civil Rights Tour and Conference. Along with Phyllis and myself, our beloved community included 2 international students, Nigeria and India, 9 African American, 2 white, 8 male, 5 female, all of wide-ranging ages. These 13 students were, and many of them still are, working on bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees in programs across the university. These are the faces of GSU, our beloved community. April 1st through the 4th, our beloved community went to Mobile, Selma, Tuskegee, and Montgomery. We crossed the Pettus Bridge. We visited the Equal Justice Legacy Museum and the National Memorial for Peace and Justice. And I'd like to bring Kyan and Samar here to introduce this brief video. Amazing work that they did.
I am Zamar Tompkins.
My name is Tyan Simmons. We were both designated to document the, well, we work for, let's go back. I'm a media studies major. I just graduated last year along with Z, but we're also continuing our education here at GSU with a master's in independent film and digital imaging. And we were chosen, we work with digital learning media design, really great people, and they taught us everything that we know. But we were chosen to document the first Becoming a Beloved Community Conference and Civil Rights Tour, which is, as we know, the first of many. We're supposed to be going to a lot of different places to learn about social justice. And me and Z are both leaders in our own way. I like to consider Z the older version of me, and he says like I'm the younger version of him, so we kind of equal each other out. The reason why we wanted to go on this trip is because we really felt like a sort of disconnect between ourselves and our ancestors, our history, American history, like Dr. West always says, it's American history, it's not African American history, it's American history. And so we were asked to do this, and we were honored because while we did learn a lot there, we also had the ability to kind of stretch our creative wings to kind of dissect the trip in our own lens. And the piece is about an 18-minute like short documentary, but it's a very objective piece. We're not showing it here today. We don't really have enough time, but we do have a short trailer to kind of foundationalize what we're trying to do for the next few years or so lifetime. So I'm excited to share it with you all. This press play here.
I have a dream, a vision. It starts inside of a picture. The frame acts as a window, peering into an America from the past that isn't distant enough. On the other side of the picture frame glass is a mob of men, some young, some old, all white. There are at least 1,000, the sons of America. They've ripped one man, a father, a brother, a son, from his home. They've tortured him, mutilated his lifeless body, and hung him in a tree. The scene is excruciatingly loud, but also eerily silent. I pause there. We mourn. There is a silence, this time filled with healing. It gives room for all to listen and be heard. Then comes the sound of an exhale, a release. The somber photo plays like another dimension within my hands. The men of the crowd are now awake and aware. They turn to their brother in the tree and take him down with a gentle urgency. They embrace him in the same white hands that broke skin, healed the wounds of the father, the brother, the son, and carrying him lovingly on their shoulders to his family. This is my dream. You cannot change the past. It does not rewind. It exists in time as was, as is. But from the work that is being done in this very room, we can embody the truth of the power in my dream for our ancestors. I look into the crowd before me and I see them sitting with us, all in unison, lovingly, laughing, forgiving, listening. And to me, that is a beloved community.
Aren't they amazing?
Yes.
I'd like to acknowledge Heather. Would you please stand? Is her voice you heard? Who is speaking? The purpose of the beloved community, and we'll give you a second, ask questions or comments, or if you have time. The purpose of the beloved community is for us to create a space for dialogue, for study, and for understanding, to become neighbors, to learn about each other. And then their assignment is to ask themselves, who am I? And what do I do with this information and knowledge that I've gained in our various fields? That is the goal, and we welcome you to join us this fall, where we will show the viewing of the entire mini documentary, and then we will have a peace circle as well to continue the healing dialogues that we need to have. And we'll announce the next endeavor for the next academic year, which is going to be the indigenous community of Illinois.
Thank you, Dr. West, and all of you. And I'll just say, I'm sure your experience was transformative and personal and powerful, but that you captured it in film, your story can be shared so that others can experience it in their own way. So thank you for making that accessible to so many more, in addition to your own experience, which is enough, right? That was powerful enough, but then you created this for others to experience too. So thank you so much. And I'd like to offer any of the trustees to add any questions or comments.
I have a comment. I just want to thank Dr. Green for making this possible. Without Dr. Green, none of us would have been able to do it. And I would like to thank Dr. V and Dr. West for a life-changing experience, for donating their time and their efforts to deal with the 13 of us. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
I guess just the only comment I have is that you answered my question. My question was, when will this, the full feature be available? So look forward to that. This is just a trailer. I can't wait to see the final product. So thank you very much for your efforts. I can't wait to see the product. Thank you.
If I may, you have the link in your inbox right now.
I have the link in my inbox right now, so I can't check that right now, but I appreciate that. Yeah, I can't wait to review it.
Yes, and please join us when we view it as a community this fall.
Is there a date for that? Do we have a date, or is it not scheduled yet? Not yet? Okay. All right, thank you. And any other? Okay. I have requested and look forward to the trustees spending a little bit more time understanding the mission and the work of the Social Justice Institute at another time, when we can really do a deeper dive and make sure we understand and have insights into that and can help leverage what you're trying to do. So thank you for your work. We appreciate it.
Trustee?
Yes, Dr. Green?
I just have to say,
She said she's so proud.
I can't even talk right now.
Well,
Thank you.
if I can add a
Please,
personal
Trustee
story,
Perkins.
which I was not going to say it, but I'll say it. Is my grandfather, after that first march across that bridge, Bloody Sunday, he, along with his employers, who happened to be Jewish, participated in the second march from Selma to Montgomery. So I do appreciate this next generation of people to understand that the world has become better. This country has become better because of it, and learning the history and understanding what happened and how we progressed, and also recognizing there's still more to do and participating in those things that need to take place to make this country a better country. So I appreciate all of you.
Thank you, Trustee. Thank you, Trustee. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. And our final, I think we're on our final, our last but certainly not least, what we've all been waiting for 3 years, is the facilities master plan. And we, I think we were squeezed into this room on purpose, just for extra emphasis, and that we need to make some capital investments in our facilities. So, nice move. But I'm going to invite the trustee, this is, hopefully, we're getting near the end where we will actually take a vote. It's my hope that we can take a vote on this at our very next meeting. So this is the time to really dig in, ask your questions. This has been a collaborative process to get to this point, guided by experts, but certainly based on input from all of the constituent stakeholder groups of the university. And we're getting near the end where we're going to pull the trigger. So we definitely, and this is an important responsibility of the Board of Trustees, to approve these future investments. So please make sure you get your questions answered and clarification of any information that we're going to receive today. And I'm sure that Mr. Potempa would be happy to answer any questions offline as well if we get too deep here
Absolutely,
today.
yes.
So with that, I think we're going to actually start with Dr. Bradford, are we?
Yes, yes. we're
Okay,
gonna
so-
start. I'm going to say a few words, and then I'll turn it over to
Please.
John and Dominique. Well, first, I want to say thank you. Thank this board. Thank our university community for your patience, because developing a campus master plan is a long process because it involves every stakeholder. The plan is circulated back and forth as we develop it over time to ensure that we're going in the right direction. And so this plan actually belongs to the entire Jaguar family, okay? I am thankful to our architects, to all of our GSU faculty, students, staff, alumni, administrators, community members, and board members who have participated and provided input into this plan. You know, we get to do this work every 8 to 10 years. So our goal is to do it right. And so this forward-thinking plan is for our long-term future for GSU. We want it to be actionable, we want it to be a reasonable plan, and we want to be able to achieve our goals and to help elevate this great institution. So the support from the board is essential, so we thank you for allowing us to present this today. And now I will turn it over to John Potempa and Dominique DeMonica, who will give you an update on the master plan. And we can have discussion during the presentation, after the plan. So I want to make sure that this is an engagement process for the members of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bradford. perfectly said. Just to add, as you know, it's been no small task throughout the last 18 to 20 months developing this facility master plan. This plan is an extension of GSU's mission statement and Strategy 2025. So there's a tremendous amount of feedback that was received from students, faculty, staff, community members, locally elected officials. So we'll jump right into it. Let me reintroduce Dominic DeMonica from DKA. He's going to guide us through this process today.
All right. Good morning, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to present the current status of where we are with the facilities master plan. As this is not working, let's try this. There we go. So as we talk about a facilities master plan, it's always important to understand what exactly a facilities master plan is. Most importantly, it is a long-term plan to ensure the rational and orderly development of your physical resources, your land and your facilities, your building facilities here on campus. It's a roadmap or a framework. That's really what a master plan is. It's a snapshot based on the current thinking of what we know as we've talked to the smartest people we could find here at your campus to understand where you might be going into the next 8 to 10 years. But it is a snapshot. It's a living document. It's guaranteed to change over time. As projects get implemented, the master plan may change and may evolve over time. And ultimately, as Mr. Potempa said, it supports your mission, your vision, and your strategic goals. So as we talk about what a master plan is, it's important to understand what a master plan is not. It is not a final design in any way, shape, or form. The final design will come as you begin to implement some of this work over time as resources become available. It is not fixed, it is not static, it is not unchangeable. Okay, those are important issues. And it's not going to all be developed at one time. You're going to see a lot of projects, a lot of potential work. This is a long-term plan that will occur for the university. So as a quick reminder, in terms of the overall process, you can see there's really 3 steps in the process. The first is gathering all the information in terms of existing facilities and meeting with all the different constituency groups that are associated with the university. We take all of that information together and we go into part 2 and we start to solve some of the issues and some of the challenges that we understand are on the table. That's a very iterative process in this second step. As Dr. Bradford said, that's a lot of back and forth with meeting with a lot of different groups. Ultimately, we come to a consensus plan, and that's what we want to talk about today, is where we are in terms of the overall consensus for the master plan and get some feedback from the Board of Trustees. Once we have that information, part 3 is the development of the actual planning document. That's going to be used then as your roadmap as you move forward into the next handful of years. We did have an update to the board about a year ago as we've been working through this process. We met with the Budget and Finance Committee back in December of last year. Here we are today, and we'll be ready as soon as your August board to have the final planning document completed for approval if that's the direction of the board. So as Mr. Potempa said, and as we talked about what a master plan is, it supports your mission and your vision. I'm not going to read these. I think most of you know what they're all about. But it's important to us as we think about a master plan to start to extract some of the key elements that can begin to shape your physical facilities. And you start to see things like exceptional and accessible education. We start to look at the campus being an economic catalyst for the region. And those things all start to build into what the final plan becomes. We also know your Strategy 2025 has some very specific goals that you're looking to accomplish, and you can see them all highlighted here. And those, again, will start to drive and inform the planning process. And as we take that information, we've also created a series of planning objectives specific to this planning process, working with the cabinet and the steering committee highlighting issues about the image of the campus, supporting the campus environment as being a student-centered learning environment, enhancing campus life space, strengthening connectivity and overall organization, encouraging more community engagement on campus, making sure the campus is safe and secure. We address traffic management issues, and we want to make sure that the plan is flexible, feasible, and ultimately sustainable. This is essentially the litmus test. So every time we looked at a planning option or opportunities, we went back and we determined, does it meet this criteria? And the plan that meets the criteria is the consensus plan. So as part of the planning process, we started with a space utilization study. I think we talked a little bit about this at our previous meeting, but just as a reminder, this is the focused space utilization component related to general classroom space. General classroom space in this scenario is, I'll call it the generic learning environment that's very flexible, collaborative. It's not program specific, it's general classroom space. What we know through, and this, by the way, is based on fall of 2019, so this is pre-pandemic. And that's an important aspect through this process. We know we've developed this plan through the pandemic, and you're coming out of it, and you're looking at how you're going to use your facilities moving forward, and that's going to potentially affect some of the things that we're looking at here, but this is the information that we're starting with. What we know through this utilization study is that there's a pinch point in the late afternoon and early evening hours, and you can see that happening right here where we begin to go above the line in terms of your availability to access classroom space. This is based on a total of 47 classrooms that exist here on campus. We've had some significant conversation with the steering committee as to whether or not this would change in the future as we kind of look at the ups and downs. It's been communicated that likely is not going to change as you look at the demographic cross-section of your student population, the fact that they have jobs and other responsibilities. And this is likely going to be the same in terms of having that pinch point in these late afternoon hours throughout the week. Those 47 classrooms comprise approximately 36,000 square feet of space. And you can see those classrooms kind of spread throughout your total campus footprint.
Hey, before we get too far away,
Yes, sir.
Pardon for the interruption, but if I don't ask him right away, I don't, I lose track. Those 47 classrooms, are they all available for use as classrooms?
They are. They're all, so you'll see in the next couple of slides here, there's actually 53 spaces that make up this 36,000 square feet. Gets a little confusing. The space utilization study was based on 47 classrooms that were in use at the time. 6 of them were offline because of COVID issues. So the total classroom space, everything you see in yellow that's designed and could be used as classroom space, is the 36,000 square feet.
Thank you.
One of the things that you'll start to see as you start to drill a little deeper into a classroom environment is that many of them are kind of awkward. They're long and skinny. Some of them are L-shaped classrooms, which makes it difficult. Some spaces have columns in the middle of the rooms. They are probably not what you might consider to be the best learning environments when we talk about more flexible classroom type environments. And here's just some images for some of the classrooms that exist here on campus. Throughout all of our discussions with all of the academic groups, without exception, they all had a preference to create more collaborative learning environments, flexible learning environments, environments that didn't necessarily have a front of the classroom, but had writing surface all around, encouraged opportunities for students to collaborate together, break out in small groups, learn from each other, access to technology, access to power everywhere so they can plug their devices in, potential transparency from the corridors into the classroom space so that it's not seen as the four walls of a classroom is the only place you can learn on this campus. It extends through the rest of the campus. So this is the model of classroom space that really is preferred to be incorporated here at GSU. So as we kind of look at the numbers then related to the classroom space in terms of the type of space that you have and the quantity of space, again, what we know is those 53 classrooms make up a little over 36, under 37,000 square feet. There was 47 net as part of that. In order to minimize that pinch point and get rid of that, we needed 3 more classrooms from 47 up to 50. And that would get us to a point where it eliminates that squeeze in those late afternoon hours. We also know when we look at the size of your classrooms, the average size is about 693 square feet. We want to right-size your classrooms. In order to be able to do those things in terms of flexibility and collaborative environments, you need classrooms that are the right proportions, you need classrooms that are the right size. So as we look at the appropriate size for the classrooms and how they would work out in the capacities, and then to go from 47 to 50, that basically increases the amount of space you need for classrooms from 36,742 to 43,2. Now, the master plan is a forward-looking document, so the goal here is to also contemplate growth. So as we talked with the steering committee, we talked about trying to incorporate a 10% growth across the board. As we modeled 10% growth, that translates to an additional 3 classrooms from that 50. So we're basically going from 47 today to 53 right-sized rooms and going from 36,700 to 45,900. So approximately 10,000 square feet of additional space is required to support the type of space that you need for classrooms and the quantity of classroom spaces. Okay, so that's an important aspect, and we're going to kind of bring that into the overall plan here in a bit.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you go back? Thanks. So the 10%, is it 10% from our current need or our current classroom size? Because 10% of 50 is
Right.
not 53. I know I'm not a math major, but.
No, that's right, and it's not a direct proportion, because not all of your classes are classroom spaces. So we looked at 10% growth across all of your divisions and colleges, and as we started to plug those in, it really is a move from 50 to 53, and those 3 additional classrooms can accommodate the 10% growth across the board. Assuming
So in student population or in program?
Student
years?
population,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Does this include the computer classrooms?
This is just the general classrooms, not computer labs,
Okay.
Thank you.
okay? So in addition to looking at the classroom utilization, we also did a deep dive and analyzed your existing conditions, your site, your buildings, to understand what a good benchmark is moving forward. So I'm just going to highlight a few components that came up through some of our discussions. And I'm going to start with circulation, vehicular circulation and pedestrian circulation. From a vehicular circulation perspective, we know that your main entrance is right here off of University Parkway. This main drive comes around campus, and it gets to this point, and then it kind of shoots back into the building, comes back around, takes a hard right, and then you pop back out onto University Parkway that runs north-south. This was identified as an area that really needs some work to possibly move that line around the outside here and continue that pathway. We also talked about the fact that the Center for Performing Arts, that I'm going to talk about in just a bit, there's really no clear access to it. And it'd be nice to get a drive that comes off of the main drive and takes you to that community-focused facility. And again, we'll talk a little bit about that in just a bit. And then lastly, there was some discussion about the potential for, this is called Drawley Road right here, and there's an L intersection. Getting from this point back over to campus to create a third way in and out, so when University Parkway gets backed up because there's a freight train coming down the path here or something. We've got another way in and out, and also addresses the folks in that part of the region. In terms of the pedestrian circulation, you'll see in blue from the Alumni Way, from the north and kind of around campus. One of the key elements that we talked about here is the pedestrian circulation from student housing over to the campus. And we're going to talk about that in a bit, and how to improve that experience. There's a pathway there, but the experience isn't great. And how do we do something to make that better for students? Switching to parking, we know that the parking expansion opportunities are somewhat limited. But if we start to look at taking this drive and bringing that around the outside here versus inside, we do have an opportunity to expand parking at this part of campus. And then, of course, in this part of the campus here, we've got another opportunity not only to serve parking for the main building area, but also as overflow for student housing as that begins to evolve. In terms of infrastructure and site utilities, there's a few items here that, again, we have to make sure we're aware of and we work around. One of them is your wind turbine that's here in the blue circle, so we know that that's existing. We know that there's a communication tower that's here that's existing, and you'll see these guys here and here are your underground gas pipelines. So we know that they exist. We know that there's some easements that are associated with each one of those. So aware of those, and as we developed the plan, we wanted to make sure that we steered clear of any impact with those pipelines.
Okay, before you get too much further ahead, I'm going to try to back you up to, if you go back to your slide 13, that's the classrooms. This gets back to my earlier question about the number of classrooms. So anyone just looking at the numbers is going to say, wait a minute, we got 47 classrooms, yet we have 53, you have 53 on campus now, 53 classrooms.
53
Not all
classroom
used.
spaces.
Classroom
Right.
spaces, okay. So someone say, well, you need 53, we got 53, so what's the problem? I see two concerns, or not concerns, questions. You say the average classroom space is 693 square feet. Why is 900 optimum? Is that something, this is the time we need to expand them, we should, or we could? Why not 1,000 square feet? Why not 1,200 square feet? So what's magical about 900 that cannot be accommodated by 693?
Well, if we go back to this, and you'll start to see how these classrooms are organized. So
That's the weird long shapes, L shapes, or whatever, they're just not conducive.
exactly. So the
Okay.
proportions of the space really should be addressed. The 900 square feet, there's a couple things that go into that. Number one, your entire campus, your big concrete columns, is based on the 30 by 30 grid, the entire campus of the main building. That's a good size if you take a 30 by 30 and get a 900 square foot classroom. That 900 square feet will give you about 30 square feet per student to accommodate 32 students in a classroom, which is the optimum size that we talked about with the academic groups. So 32 students at about 30 square feet. The minimum you want in a classroom is 20. If we go to 30, you have the capability to move furniture around and have the kind of flexibility to support this type of learning environment. 20 square feet gives you a directional lecture-style classroom, and that's about it. If you want to be able to have something like this, you have to expand that space, and it gives you about 30 square feet per student.
Okay, just, I just want to keep that square in our minds, that this, even though we have these numbers, we don't have it optimally configured, and for the long-range plan, this is how we want to address it. I'm with you on that point, thank you for that clarification.
Yes, sir.
Let me scoot you up to page, your slide 14. 15, I'm sorry.
I'm not
One
sure
more.
which one, I don't have
One
a
more, right
number
there.
on this guy.
Okay, the proposed access to Drawley Road, we have an existing path that goes straight due south to whatever that road is that runs east-west at the very south end of campus. Why would that not be a logical improve, enhance that? It's already a preset right away through that. Why are we thinking about Drawley's more access other than in physically being more, more closely associated to Governor's Highway? I get that, but why don't we take an existing thing and then improve that rather than try to build a new roadway?
Yeah, one of the things that, and that's a good question, what we had heard is that this roadway, which obviously is not owned by the university, is in disrepair. Is that correct?
That is correct. I don't know if anyone's ever gone down that road, but it is littered with potholes. Yeah, and it's not a pothole that you're going to want to hit, and there's 100 of them. they'll ruin your vehicle. The sides of the road are littered with tires and television sets.
Who's
Once a
road
year-
authority, who's the road authority there?
Yeah, I don't, we work with, once a year, we work with John Younger and the Sustainability Committee. And we go out there and we clean it up, and there's a bunch of volunteers. But I believe it's owned by University Park.
Okay, so it's a municipal roadway.
Yeah.
What's Drolley then?
It's also municipal roadway.
Okay, so it'll be the same road authority you have to go to for permission, whether we connect to Drolley or connect down to that.
Right.
POS on the south side. Okay.
Yes, and this would be a connection point. This would, if we want to use this potentially, if that's your question, as that access point, we'd want to probably get this improved. And then I think this is just like a gravel road.
It's gravel and grass and.
Yeah, so that would all
combination.
have to be improved as well.
Agreed.
But it's an opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Aren't there also water problems with low-lying areas on that existing gravel road?
Coming up here,
Yeah.
John, are you aware of those?
There are, but I think the road is probably the only place going south that you could probably build something. So I don't think there's water problems exactly right there. I'd have to find out.
It's the low point of Drolley Road, because that's where Thorn Creek passes through, so that's really not an
At the very entrance, Louis? Yeah.
You're there, yeah, so you can dip.
Yeah, Thorn Creek's coming right through here, right?
Well, this isn't the decision for today or
No,
next week.
yeah.
But just keep in mind that there's a question mark in our minds. See,
Yeah,
why would you
excellent point.
cut through virgin land rather than use an existing right of way?
And the other thing is, as we kind of go through this presentation, you'll see how all the pieces come together. That may be a good approach as we kind of evaluate it here.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. So next, I'm going to talk about natural amenities. During one of our meetings, Dr. Green said, as we're talking about the kind of campus this wants to be, this idea of really taking advantage of your strengths on campus and really promoting that. You've got an incredible piece of property here that the university sits on, but you don't really take advantage of it, full advantage of it, in terms of integrating the building and views and visibility with some of the great things that are happening here on campus. We know that you've got the lake that's kind of the center of the campus here. You've got a lot of native landscaping. You've got a lot of agricultural fields and wooded space in here. So as we think about the master plan, how do we engage the natural surroundings in terms of views and visibility from the buildings out, and also when you're in those spaces, looking back towards the campus? The NATE, obviously voted #1 sculpture park in the US a year or so ago. We know that you have sculptural pieces that are around campus. As we think about development, especially if we're going to expand and develop the core, you start to see all of the sculpture that's around here. We've worked with Jeff Stevenson. We've had a meeting or two with him. There's some sculptures that are contextual, which means that they're there specifically because they work with the land, and there's others that can be moved anywhere on campus to do what they need to do. So as we think about overall development, we have to be cognizant of that. And then, of course, your buildings, and we look at your building massing with the main building here in the center and the separate buildings that are kind of located out here, as well as down here with the President's Conference Center and the field house, or the field station, I'm sorry. You have about 729,000 gross square feet currently on campus. So then going from the site and looking at it from that perspective to the actual spaces within your campus, I'm not going to get into the detail, but a good understanding of what's where there's opportunities to enhance adjacencies and promote efficiencies, the quality of the spaces, first floor, second floor. A couple of things here to note. You see your library back in here. This is where your core of your computer labs are that you talked about. Then up on the third floor, you have quite a few classroom spaces and office spaces. So as we went through the process, we met with, I can't remember, 30 or 40 different focus groups representing 40 different focus groups that represent every component here at GSU. We've kind of organized them here by academic programs, student support, administrative functions. We had open forums where we had 2 opportunities for students to come and provide some input. A separate open forum for faculty, one for staff, to allow them to provide whatever input they'd like to. We met with your Executive Advisory Council. We met with local leadership, regional leadership, University Park and Park Forest, so they understood what was happening and we understood what's happening with them. And most recently, we met with a group of folks that are doing a transit-oriented development planning study for University Park around the train station to see if there's some opportunities for partnership with what they may be proposing and what the needs are here at the university in terms of housing or retail or anything along those lines. That just started, by the way, that process, so it's very early, and as that develops, there may be some opportunities to reconnect with
What's the
them.
overarching agency with that one, the TOD study?
That is University Park that is running that, and they hired a planning consulting team to begin that process.
You know, stuff like this of this nature has such wide-ranging impact that, to me, that's got to be a regional thing, not just a local municipality thing. That takes kind of the immediate burden off the local community and kind of spreads over, you know, greater good for greater area and stuff. So I asked that specifically because I assumed it was University Park, but they have enough challenges keeping their doors open, keeping their water clean. They have a lot of challenges other than, you know, expanding this thing also. So I don't know if if there is interest with the, you know, broader regional planning agencies, whether it be South Suburban mayors and managers, whether it be some other agency I'm not aware of, whether it be Kankakee, something, I don't know. But my concern is I don't want to be hung up too much on what University Park can or cannot do. I don't think it's fair to them. They have other challenges. Then we're just another one of their challenges.
Yeah, and that was, it was an interesting discussion we had. They had requested the potential to move your main entrance, kind of looking at what they're trying to do and have some synergy between the entrance to the university and entrance to their development. But again, as that develops, let's see where it goes. And housing may be a good opportunity. If they have some housing that's going there and there's housing need here at the university, maybe there's some opportunities to partner there.
The President's Conference Center, does that get used for anything at all? Is that just random storage or?
It does not get used. Actually, we will be eventually, you know, taking that building down when we build the new Social Justice Institute.
Tell them why you're taking it down.
It's in terrible shape, and it has not been maintained for probably 15 years.
Okay, well, I see it mentioned on occasion on the map and stuff, and I know it's there, I've driven past it, but it's just like, yeah, it's either needs in sore need of something or reuse or, you know, demoing and start off. So I get that, I just was curious where that's at.
I think the raccoons do use it, though, if I'm not mistaken.
Just the
Thought I
basement,
saw some in
for
there.
sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to move into the house, and they
It
wouldn't
was a
let
brief
me.
discussion a couple years ago, but we got over that quickly. I asked one of our earlier presentations about the Family Development Center. I see it mentioned here as a focus group. I see it on the map, but there's no other recognition for it also. I recognize the purposes of the master plan and how it could be changed in time. My concern is if this university develops to the point where there is greater need for the Family Development Center, that we're not constricted by not having, at least marking it in this master plan as something, you know, deserving a further look. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say it can be adjusted, it can be adapted and stuff, but I'm here to tell you, if it's not pre-mentioned, it's an uphill battle that doesn't need to be had a couple of years from now. So I don't know where the appropriate time is, and we can talk about this further as time goes on, but there's some acknowledgement that this can be a huge asset for this university.
I can tell you, and really everything that you see in the master plan is a direct result of the meetings that we had with all these individuals. And during the meetings regarding the Family Development Center, there was no request or desire for any expansion. What we had heard is that the internal workings of the space, in terms of the amount of storage and some toilet room upgrades that were required, that was
Parking.
necessary, some parking expansion. But in terms of overall growth, I want to say it serves 200 students. 85% are kind of community folks. The other 15 are faculty, staff, and student children. But there was no discussion about the need for growth. Now, again, things could change, and The way we've set up the plan is not going to restrict the opportunity for growth either to the south or to the north on that plan or any direction. But if we think we need to show that growth, so we have a placeholder, we can certainly do so.
Fair enough.
Okay? All right, so as we've met with all these individuals, every single group has some need, whether it's the quality of space need, additional need in terms of long-term growth. And what we did is we tried, and knowing, of course, that your existing campus is pretty much full up. There's not a lot of room for anything to really grow in your existing facilities. So we know that there's going to need to be some new construction that would have to occur to accommodate for some of the growth needs that have been identified. So what we did is we looked at those components that made most sense to be expanding as new construction versus expanding within the existing facilities. And you'll see the list here organized again by academic support and student support from your library all the way down to new clinical space, student support from a new student center down to a new student security and safety facility. So what I'm going to do now is kind of go into each of these briefly so you understand what they are, the rationale for them, the area on campus that were contemplated, and you'll see on each of these as they pop up how this facility supports either your strategic goals or the planning objectives as part of this planning process. So we're going to start with the new library. Your existing library space in here, quite honestly, is not too far off from the amount of space that you need for an institution of your size for a library. The issues with the library are that it's really is kind of two halves to a library. It kind of evolved over time. There's this little pinch point that connects the two back in here. And the kind of spaces that are in your library are not really what I'll say contemporary academic libraries include, such as more group study space, more one-button studios so that students and faculty can make presentations, virtual reality space, the staff offices. I know you're looking to make some adjustments now. And the space is also, I call, pancaked. It's about 50,000 square feet of space currently, all with about a 9-foot ceiling or so. So when you have a large expanse like that with a ceiling height like this, it's not a welcoming space as a center for kind of academic work for an institution like GSU. It's also important to note that if the library moved out, that would provide a significant amount of space for the growth of all these other programs that we're going to talk about. So again, so when we looked at the library, we said, you know, there's one opportunity to keep it on the front of the campus right in here, but there's also, when you see these, the one that's in red is the preferred location. Putting it on the back side and connecting it to the existing building, and again, beginning to take advantage of the views of the lake and across the lake, engaging students to be able to walk outside and really start to do something nice with this part of the campus, which is just not there today. Next, I'm going to talk about the Innovation and Conference Center. Again, nearly without exception, every group that we talked with said that there was a need on campus for more meeting space, more formalized meeting space. We have spaces like this, like Engbertson, but there's nothing to accommodate up to 300 or 400 folks for an all-campus event. And certainly regionally, there's nothing here at the university that can support larger events coming from the region. So as we looked at the opportunities for this Innovation and Conference Center, we said if we put it up here close to University Parkway and by the entrance, that certainly would be accessible to the community, but really detached from the university. So we struck that. We looked back here where the President's Conference Center is and said maybe there's an opportunity to create more of a retreat. Too far disconnected again, and the utility costs and infrastructure didn't make sense. So dropping that right in here and taking advantage again of this part of the lake and those views, and you'll see how that is developed, is where it has landed. And the opportunity again to bring that spur from the main drive directly into that conference center begins to make some sense as well. The Social Justice Institute, on the heels of that phenomenal presentation that we just saw, having a facility to support those programs. Again, we talked about a facility that would have some meeting space, some office space within it for support, not only for folks here on campus, but for folks throughout the community. So again, this is one of those facilities that wants to be easily accessible and very visible. So again, we looked at maybe a nice little retreat back in here, but really tucked away, hard to find. And so where we've landed with this, with the Social Justice Institute, is right next to the Hantack House, using the parking that's already there, the infrastructure that's there. And as you come in off of the main entry here, it's very visible and easy to access for community, as well as it's right off of Alumni Way. So folks that might be coming in from the train can access it very easily. An academic extension, you'll see all these projects that have a little asterisk next to them are projects that are already on your capital request list for IBHE. This is one of those, and there's an area back here by Building E that's kind of got a gouge taken out of it, that if it were infilled can give you just under 5,000 square feet of academic space. In our current master plan that we've shown in our test fit, we're showing a new drawing studio and a media lab to support some of the other art programs that are here that would free up that existing space for other classroom requirements. The Center for Performing Arts. So as we talked about a little bit, when folks come in from the community for an event at the CPA, again, they'll come in this drive, they come around here, they park, then they have to walk.
Excuse me, sorry, can we go back just a minute? I just want to raise a connection for the trustees with respect to the art programs. I'm sure those who are on the Academic Affairs Committee noted that our Masters and Bachelors of Fine Arts programs are underpopulated, shall we say? And the reason is because there is no space for those programs, and the space is the problem. So I just wanted to make that connection between the arts space and the media space and the academic programs. We can't attract those students if we don't have anywhere for them to work. So, and it's right next to the Center for Performing Arts. You know, we are about the arts. We have the Nate and the sculptures, and so to not be able to accommodate an academic program in the arts is inconsistent and a deficiency. So, sorry, just wanted to make that
No,
connection in
excellent
case it
point.
wasn't
Thank
made.
you. So with the Center for Performing Arts, again, that access into the facility, which again is a huge regional draw, taking advantage of this spur that comes in here, just like we did with the potential conference center, and having access directly to the Center for Performing Arts will avoid folks from having to come in, park, come all the way through the facility, through the Hall of Governors, down this guy, into the lobby before you get into that space. Very difficult to find and maneuver at this point. So the idea here is to create a lobby expansion, so this is your current lobby, and wrap that lobby around this side of the building, create a new entry, and also to create some back-of-house functions. Your current stage does not have a scene shop or a costume shop, and that's limiting some of the performances and some of the activities that need to occur here. Clinical space. So with the HHS folks, nearly every single program has the need for clinical space. And many of them have the desire to really grow clinical space and bring more folks from the community onto campus. So as we kind of look at each of the individual areas and look at the types of space that would be required, the thought was to kind of consolidate this clinical space into what could be seen almost as a medical office building on campus. Something that's connected to the rest of the academic programs in the main building, but also something that's easy to access for folks in the community. They can drive in, drop off, park, go to their appointment, and leave without having to search down corridors for a clinical space for psychology that may be buried in a secondary corridor somewhere. So that's the thought here, to accommodate growth and to consolidate these ideas into something more suitable. And you'll see again, we looked at a couple of opportunities right here off the main entry, and you can see the theme. Everything that we looked at the main entry was pretty much discounted, because I think at the end of the day, keeping that nice access point in makes a whole lot of sense. We looked at possibly creating an expansion right adjacent to the Family Development Center so that could be easy to access. And then lastly, what we talked about was creating that location right here off the east side, adjacent to the library. So the access point into campus right here is easy for community folks. Your parking is here. We create a drop-off. They can come in and come out. And then this is also connected to where most of the HHS programs are on the east or south part of the existing main building.
That's right where you get the new library proposed to be in that same area, right? Just adjacent to it?
They would be adjacent to each other.
Okay. Is those wooded areas, are those protected wetlands, do we know?
This area right in here,
Yeah.
I don't believe those are protected wetlands.
It's not part of Thorn Creek Basin drainage?
Well, I don't know, Louis, I don't know if you know the answer to that. Yeah.
I'm sorry, by the parking lot where?
Not by the parking lots, no, you have to go way out to where Thorn Creek is to get into the.
Okay,
Here.
thank you.
So Student Center, one of the things that became very clear as we talked with many of the Student Center folks, student services, student activities, when you start to look at this green area that's kind of spread throughout, a lot of your student services are decentralized and they're spread throughout campus. Wherever space became available, things kind of landed. And so the thought is to create a student center that consolidates all of your student services functions together for the ease of students, from a wayfinding perspective, from a synergy perspective, and then also consolidating those at a point where you can create a new front door. Create something that's much more visible, much more inviting for the university. Your current main entrance, you know it's the main entrance because it says main entrance right over the door. But that's the only way you know that that's the main entrance to the campus. So if there's a way architecturally to begin to create this student center and engage those student service functions with student activities in your bookstore, food service, that was a real goal so that you had a true student center here on campus.
Nice.
And the location for that is right here in the front of campus. So as you come around the drive, it becomes very visible. Student housing, as we talked with the folks from student housing, there was not a need today for extensive growth in student housing. However, your 288 beds or so that you have today, there's some discussion about the kind of organization, it's in suite style. If that can be converted more to graduate housing and then create new housing to support underclassmen, and looking at about 1,000 beds maximum within the campus to support things moving forward. So the idea with student housing growth is it needs to be incremental. As need arises, it needs to grow in a very orderly fashion to create a sense of community. So we looked at a couple of options. One was, do we take Prairie Place and say that's one community? Do we create another community somewhere? And the consensus is to keep it all together into one student housing community, so there's more of a mass there. And you'll see how that has begun to develop. So the athletics complex. When we met with the athletics folks.
I'm sorry, going back to the student housing, is there going to be parking allotted for that area?
There will be.
Okay.
There'll be parking, and that's one of the things that we heard. I believe this parking lot right here is about 50 spaces, and there's 288 beds, so clearly it's short. So many of these students end up parking back over here.
Right.
So as it develops, kind of enhancing the parking experience for them. So the athletics complex, when we met with the athletics folks, they presented to us a comprehensive 5-year athletics master plan.
Sorry, can we go back to the housing again? Before we actually take a final vote on this, I would be interested in understanding more about the projections, because if they're all based on graduate, or primarily based on graduate student housing, I would like to understand what type of feasibility studies might have been done. It's my understanding that the demographics of our graduate students are such that many of them would not need student housing. And so when we prioritize this plan, I'll just, show my hand. Student housing is not necessarily at the top of the list, because we are going to have to talk about, well, how do we pay for all of this? So I definitely would need to understand that better, and if there's backup information, I am requesting that.
Yeah, Chair Sebastian, what we're looking at in terms of housing is support for our athletic programs. As we grow our athletic teams, we're increasing the number to almost 300 athletes. We also have honor students that we would like to house on our campus. We've been talking about developing the honors college, and so recruiting more honor students to our university. And then we have international students we're recruiting that are at the undergraduate level that we're going to require them to reside with us too, because we think that it's more secure for them coming from a foreign country. They don't know different places to live in the United States. It's better to have them on campus. And right now, our undergraduate international recruitment has been low, but our plans is to grow that population. And so we will build this over time. So we're not looking to go to 200 to 1,000 students in like 5 years. You're talking about a 10-year time period.
Okay, so one thing you said was the honors program. Are you thinking that the honors students would be housed separately?
No, they'll be all in the community
Okay, because that
together.
kind of
Yes,
goes against
yes.
our grain, but Dr. Green?
I just want to say that I agree, Trustee Sebastian, that one of my requests also is to do a needs assessment of students, because I think one hasn't been done, somebody correct me, in several years, and we need a current assessment of what the student preferences are, as well as how that connects to our future growth plans for the university, because that needs to be assessed. I don't want to make decisions about growth based on opinion. I would like to conduct a needs assessment of the students.
Yeah, I thank you for that. And also, if there were conversations with local communities about their housing developments and any potential partnerships, however dysfunctional some people think our local communities might be, but still, it's important to.
That's too extreme a word, I'd say they have challenges.
It's still important to acknowledge that, particularly when we're talking about the investment that's required for student housing. We definitely need to understand what those projections are and what they're based on, because it doesn't comport with our current student population, at least as far as I'm aware. So thank you.
Yeah, and again, I think one of the things that we should keep in mind is this is just that framework if the need arises. And I think the point that you made would be the same point with all of these projects. And these ideas that have been shown here are based on what we heard as this point in time. So if things begin to change, then I think it all needs to be reassessed in terms of whether or not space is required.
Thank you.
So athletics, it is based on the 5-year plan that has been developed by the athletics folks. And that 5-year plan talks to the growth of athletics overall in terms of the number and types of teams here at GSU, the number of athletes that would be participating in each of those sports, and the types of facilities that you would need to be able to support that growth. So currently, we know that your gymnasium and your locker room space and the small fitness center is a nice facility, but it doesn't really support a large athletic program for a university. And so what was requested as part of the comprehensive master plan for athletics were outdoor fields, additional outdoor fields, and indoor building space. The outdoor fields included a couple of soccer/football fields, a new baseball field, and a softball field. And then a field house to deal with some of the court sports, your basketball, your volleyball, that would have gymnasium space, competition gymnasium and practice gymnasium, locker rooms, fitness training facilities that would be required there. In addition to that, there was some discussion about an indoor multi-purpose turf space to accommodate indoor practices during off-season and during inclement weather. Might be some type of a dome structure as well. So as you can see, this takes up a big footprint. These fields, the facilities, the parking to support it. And so again, we looked at, where are there two large, big areas here on campus, and one, again, is your front door, not the impression that we really want to have. But right back in this zone here, kind of working around the pipeline, is the spot that was landed on for the athletics development.
Can I make one interjection?
Please.
I was just confirming with Mushtaq that prior to the pandemic, we actually had a wait list to get into Prairie Place because the demand exceeded the supply. So that is a positive trend for the housing, but there's more assessment and surveying that needs to be conducted.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dominic, just, when you say
Sir.
football, are you talking about soccer?
I don't know what am I talking about.
We got to get out of here.
Maybe. It's the same field, more or less. If it's sized for soccer, you can use any kind of football on it.
So with respect to the athletics complex, is this based primarily on the request of the athletics department? What type of vetting or review has been done relative to the strategy, the enrollment strategy, the university strategy? This is a huge investment. And we already know from the study on the field that was very expensive just to have the study that there's problems on the field. So I don't know what they are, but I understand that there's problems. So which means even a normal investment is going to be more expensive to address those concerns. So I really would like to understand how this fits with the overall strategy. And again, I want to make sure we get to what are we prioritizing? Because in my mind, the academic classrooms and the academic spaces,
Right.
number one priority. Those are spaces that we already have that don't work well and that we need to change. But those things that have been on the IBHE list have been on there for a long time. And so we can't just keep throwing wish lists. And I just, again, want to understand the rest of the review that has been done with respect to the athletics complex.
Yeah, so what I can tell you is the master plan that was presented to us, we took a document that we wanted to make sure we had the facilities to support. So I think in terms of vetting that plan as an institution, that again, I think is something just like housing. Is it something that's real? If it is, this is where it could develop. If it's not, you don't develop that space.
Thank you.
And so it becomes that framework.
The acting chair makes a good point. I was just thinking about similarly, because I don't think we've ever had a board discussion about the athletics. No, we had some points raised about how it can attract more business, more opportunities, whatever, and that's, I think intellectually we get, but I think would be, give us better peace of mind to actually have a review and presentation of athletics, what the future of it looks like for Governor State, is why is it attractive, why at this time, so on and so forth. And again, this is not a negative towards athletics at all. It's just like the acting chair says, we need to know what we're recommending here and why we're recommending it. So we can have a featured board meeting, maybe a presentation on the whole logic behind the athletics program.
Would you like for Paul to answer any questions right now, because he's here?
Okay,
And they
Paul, what about the
report-
future of the-
Athletics reports to Paul McGinnis.
I would like to hear how do you respond?
Sure. So the five-year plan has intersecting points, and with every new sport, we know that we'll hit this number of heads and have this amount of revenue generated. When we built the A building, it was not with athletics in mind. So even our current facilities really don't do an adequate job. We have to take the referees for a basketball game or a volleyball game and kind of put them in a classroom to change. And we had to separate our locker rooms just to create space for visiting teams and home teams by gender. So the building didn't really come with the idea of competitive sports, and it's very reflected in that. So what we did is we looked at the high-growth sports that are out there. And I can tell you from the year, what was it? I'll say that prior to COVID, 2019, we had roughly about 97 athletes. This fall, we're projecting somewhere in the neighborhood of about 220 athletes. And at the end of our master plan, we'll probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 350 to 60 athletes on campus. The athletes right now do carry an extremely high GPA, and many of them are on the honors list. I think we had in excess of like 35, and I want to say 7 of them had 4.0 GPA, so they're very good students. It's not unusual to have facilities like this, not only for competitive sports, but also for your student body, as well as the community. So right now, the Southland is also in a void of any type of structure that would be indoor, where youth programs or summer programs could participate. So it's not just we're building fields to compete, we're also building fields for the community, but also will generate income to come back in as part of the sustainability in addition to the additional heads that we bring in.
Thank you. That's helpful for me. I mean, I would appreciate seeing a full business case with the competitive analysis and, just really to understand that. Because this is a big change for the university. Like you said, it wasn't built for this, wasn't built with this in mind. So this is a strategic expansion and it's a massive investment. So I definitely would want to understand more and see those figures that you're quoting.
Chair Sebastian, to
Please.
Paul's point, at our student senate meetings, we never have a high turnout unless there's an election. But student athletes always come to our meetings. They complain that they can't compete here on campus. They have to go to other facilities to compete. And many of our international students are the athletes. And so they don't even have, many of them can't, like Dr. Green said, there was a waiting for Prairie Place. In fact, Ganesh, he just left. He was with us on the trip to the Beloved tour. And 2 of his cohorts called me up. He gave them my number, and they're trying to find housing right now. Right now. They're both international students, and they're both athletes. So there is a need. They come to every meeting and ask these questions.
Yeah, that's an outstanding point. We've had challenges in the programs that aren't actually housed on campus here in finding appropriate collegiate facilities, but also the transportation to get to those is becoming more and more problematic. And the last thing we want to do is put our students in a position where they're basically playing away for every single game, because the inherent risk kind of goes up with the probability of accidents and other things we're exploring, and probably will need to provide transportation even for our home games to mitigate any risk that's out there.
And let's be clear, we're not criticizing the athletic program in any way, shape, or form. We just want to know the math behind it, why it makes sense for university to proceed if we want to go this route, and we haven't had that discussion as our point.
Yeah, no, I welcome the discussion, and I look forward to presenting more information. I think these are incredibly valid questions.
Thank you both.
And I think there's opportunity there also to fundraise for athletics. If you look at a lot of athletic programs, they are big fundraising operations for university. So to build a lot of these athletic fields, we're considering resources, the fundraising component to this as well. So it's not just going to be issuing debt to build out these sports complex, but fundraising is going to be a key component of that as well.
It also recognized that the use of scholarships is huge for trying to attract student athletes. We're no exception. I do see a list of the scholarships for granted athletes, and they're modest. They're a couple thousand, not a couple tens of thousands sort of stuff. So presumably any fees or entrance fees or tuition would outweigh that anyway. But, so we recognize these as valid. We just want to get our arms around it. Yes.
I would also like to add that as we imagine the growth of athletic programs and facilities at GSU, we can also generate a lot of revenue for summer camps and programs for youth, which I'm always thinking recruitment and enrollment. And when young people can come to GSU and have amazing summer camp experiences like they do with our STEAM camp, which is active right now and on our billboards, then when they think about college, they'll think about GSU because they already have a relationship, a positive experience, some engagement, familiarity with the campus, so on and so forth. So it has a lot of potential benefits for the university that you will hear about when you get your full presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, these are all excellent points, and I think it's information that we need in order to make informed decisions, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit because there's a lot here. The Veterans Center. There was a desire to expand the need for veterans resources, and they really looked at it in terms of three areas. One is veterans resources, which is the lounge space that currently exists in the GMT, the creation of an ROTC command post with some classroom space and office space to support an ROTC program here at GSU, and then the idea of creating a regional rehab center, a mini VA, if you will, that might link to the PT and OT programs in the clinical space that we already talked about. These two guys in here, it's proposed that they be located within the GMT as we potentially move some other space out. That you'll see in a second, and then the regional rehab would be connected with the clinical facility that is being proposed.
So the Veterans Center will stay in the GMT building?
Yes, so right now, this is the Veterans Center. It's kind of right in here, some office space and lounge. Testing would move out to the main building, and this becomes the Veterans Resource Space right in here. So it would almost double in size in this scenario. And then as the School for Extended Learning and International Services potentially moves to the main building, this area then could free up for the ROTC command post. So then this building becomes entirely IT and veterans. So I'm guessing a pretty secure spot for everything that you've got on campus. And then lastly, the vehicle storage facility, it's an expansion for students' security and safety. Again, this is one of the projects that's currently on your IBHE list. And so you'll see this is currently where police is located. So right on this end of the building here is creating an interior space for vehicle storage, kind of a sally port. So if there's any events, you can bring somebody, an individual in for questioning within that space.
I'm sorry, one second. Going back to the Veterans Center. So I was present at both the open student forums and when you came and talked to the Senate, and I'm the former veterans representative. And so, as I said, when I first came to this university, I didn't know we had a Veterans Center because it is so disconnected over in the back in the corner. And when I became the veterans representative and talked to students, they were like, we have what, a Veterans Rep Center? So is there going to be something to bring more exposure to, because it's so far off away from the main campus? It's actually very disconnected.
Yeah, and I would think that there's an there's an opportunity if that facility is almost entirely dedicated to that for signage, wayfinding, branding of this area, assuming it stays here in the GMT.
Okay.
I think some of the folks we talked about said they kind of liked it, that it was a little bit more remote from the main activity of the main building.
It's not utilized very much. I can tell you that now. Many students, I had to actively go out and let students know we had it. I was here for a full semester before I knew we had a Veterans Center.
Okay,
So, yeah, there'll have to be signage, et cetera,
make
because
sure. it's visible.
It's very isolated.
Well, there's also an opportunity if the student center is near the front, if the student center can communicate effectively, these are all of the services that are available. I mean, that might be a way, even though the physical location may not be adjacent or near the entrance, the communication channels should point people there,
Hopefully.
potentially.
Okay, so that was the vehicle storage component here adjacent to police. So this is the consolidated preferred locations of each of those projects that I just reviewed, each of the new construction pieces. You can see how the bubbles begin to land, where the access drive maybe comes in. You'll see how athletics, if the drive comes in here, there may be a spur that connects you to this point, where potential parking expansion can occur, how that new spur can come off of this area and get you to the conference center, as well as to the new CPA lobby. So then the next step, after we know and we vetted essentially where those facilities might want to land as part of this framework, is to start to put some scale to them. And that's what we've done here. And you begin to see those bubbles turn into right-sized facilities and how that might land on your property. So the main building has the vast majority of expansion working around it. This zone here has your student housing and the Social Justice Institute, and this zone here is where the athletics complex is. One thing I will point out are these three bubbles here are the potential IDPH sites that I believe you're all aware of, that they are looking at some sort of a research lab space. Is that?
They're looking at moving their entire facility from Cook County, and GSU was one of their preferred options that they're looking at. And we've had an architect come out here. We haven't heard anything since then. So we're assuming we're still in the running for this building here.
Standalone off to its own.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is probably the preferred space, I think for everybody, because it would start to engage that front entry and activate that entry a little bit more. Okay, so we've taken the bubbles, we've turned that into kind of scaled facilities, and now I want to zero in on some of these so you can understand a little bit more about the effect that these facilities might have on the overall fabric of the campus. And I'm going to start with this area right back in here. This is where that new spur would come in. There would be a drop-off area right in here. That drop-off would give you access, these red dots represent entries, to the Center for Performing Arts new lobby space directly off of that zone. A new entry into the Innovation Conference Center right in here. That conference center is positioned in a way that could overlook the lakefront and also kind of act as bookends with the CPA lobby and create this plaza environment between the two facilities. One of the things that we know, or that we've heard, I guess, on campus, is that there's kind of a lack of formalized gathering space outdoors. And so creating this kind of plaza environment allows for different events to potentially occur. The third bubble here is the existing entrance that takes you into what is currently the fitness center area.
Dominic, on that, are any of those like walking paths? Because when you talk about like the lack of outdoor space, like I tried walking around the university one day to the left, and it was not a pleasant walk after a while, because you just go through like docks and stuff,
Right.
right? And we have so much beautiful natural land. Is that here?
Yeah, this whole area then would be developed. I think some of the pathways are walkable, some are just mowed grass to kind of create pathways. So depending on weather, they may or may not be very accessible. And you start to see in this plan, some of these are sculptures that may have to be slightly repositioned to accommodate this. But the idea here is to really kind of create this, I'll call it a front door for the community, right? For the region as they're coming in to use either the Performing Arts Center or access a conference in here. That becomes that imagery of what the university is all about. So this is what that space looks like right now. So if I'm standing here, kind of looking right through this edge currently, this is what we see. We see the side, oh, I think I just lost my clicker. You start to see the side of the Center for Performing Arts here. There's some grassy area, there's a hunk of concrete that I think is used for outdoor theater or something along those lines. And so as we think about what that could begin to look like, here is that Center for Performing Arts, right? This is the new area that wraps around the space to create the new lobby. You'll see the glassy lobby here. This is the drive as you begin to come up into this zone, and then this is the new conference center off to your left. Opportunities for branding and really creating a very engaging type of environment. As we get a little bit closer to the space, you start to see entries into the conference center, the entry right here into the lobby space, and then this zone in between with that visibility, you actually begin to see a potential new library beyond. So just another angle. And again, remember, these are not final designs. These are all imagery of what these facilities could begin to look like. Although I think these are great designs that if we could do this. As you come around the space here for the drop-off, you'll see with the doors right in here, a nice overhang to keep folks out of the weather. So it really becomes a very inviting and engaging entry sequence for folks that really have never maybe been to GSU before to come into these facilities. So again, just as a reminder in that space and what that view looks like across here with that great visibility, we start to now immerse ourselves into that zone. And here's the CPA lobby, glassy, looking out over a landscape space with seating and opportunities for students to have plug-ins to charge their devices, some really subtle lighting for evening or dusk events, maybe with your foundation. You start to see this wall here, which is glass that looks into the pre-function space of the conference center. And again, they work as bookends. And straight ahead, you start to see the potential library beyond. And as we get a little bit closer to the edge with this railing, you kind of look down into the lake. You start to really engage with the rest of the campus. So that is kind of what it could feel like between the conference center and the performing arts center. Any questions on those?
Yeah, going back to your schematic, you show the drop-off area just in diagrammatic form. I see surface parking, 120 cars off to the left. Is that, it's on your page 40. Is that off to the left of to the west of the new proposed drop-off area? And where's parking, I guess, is also.
Yeah, it's
That's
so-
not enough for anything, so where's parking?
So this is showing 120 spaces.
That's that current or new?
That's new. That does not exist today at all. So folks would come in, they can drop off, they can come in here, park their car, and then walk into the facility.
But you're designing this with the thought of having 300, 400 participants at either CPA or the Innovation Center.
Exactly. So this is showing 120, and we stopped at, this is the pipeline. You can build parking over pipelines, not an issue, but there's a tree line that's right here. So we can fit about 120 cars on this side of the tree line. If we need more vehicles, as these expand and there's more of a need for parking, this tree line may disappear, and there actually is quite a bit of space over here to continue to expand parking.
And we were all talking all surface parking, we're not talking about parking structures.
Correct, surface parking.
Cost prohibitive.
Right, yeah.
Sorry, would it be like the green parking we have in the front?
It could be, the permeable pavers, probably would be. I mean, you've set the precedent there. It seems like it would make sense with this natural space that's in this area. Let me get through these again. Okay, any other questions on on those two components? So next, I'm going to shift to the student center. So as we talked about the student center, we talked about consolidating student services, functions, and student activities, and at the same time, creating a new front door for the campus. So right here is the current entry, the current main entry into Building D. And the idea is to, with this proposal here, is to create new construction that has usable space in here and a new entry that begins to take people right into the campus and into the heart of what's happening. The idea with this plan is to maintain this area instead of infilling that, creating an outdoor courtyard so that students, if they want to do outdoor functions, they have a nice, intimate, secluded space that they can use, they can call their own, and they can program different functions and events in that space as well. You'll see right here, there's a bridge at the second floor level that begins to connect across to what would potentially be the vacated library if that were to move over to this location.
On main building D, go back to that slide, on main building D, are there any windows opening to where this courtyard you just, is that window, or is that all blank walls?
There are some, I think at corners, it's not a vast amount of glass, but there are some, I believe, in the corners. I'd have to confirm that. And that's kind of true with the entire campus. You've got some slits of glass, and again, trying to open up things to be able to look into the green space is always nice. This would be almost all glass as that entry coming in here, and then this landscaping in here to kind of understand that. So on this plan, we kind of show the plan, the new plan development in this darker red, with a welcome desk somewhere in here, new entry point coming in. So on the lower level, we would have that one-stop welcome center, admissions, registration, financial aid, graduate admissions, and housing, all fitting right in this area. That would then be adjacent to the lighter color red, that is essentially the student activity space that you start to see. The pool stays, so there's kind of an interesting connection of student services and wellness back in here. Fitness center stays, the gymnasium would stay. As you continue into the space, there's an opportunity to create a spot dedicated for clubs and organizations, student senate offices, moving the bookstore, which currently resides over here, kind of remote, putting that in the heart of the campus so everybody that walks by with a glassy storefront can see spiritware and the things that are happening in a traditional bookstore. And so that takes you right into the space and then dumps you right into food service. So trying to find a way to create a new front door and then link these existing facilities with some of the new facilities is the overall goal with this model. Going up to the second floor, again, we would then put things like academic advising and so forth. You see the list here up into this space. This continues. This is a two-story kind of overlook down below. And then you have the bridge that connects across, and that would take you to a relocated academic resource center, TRIO program, still kind of academic student support focused that connects with this, but puts that in a more kind of quiet spot. And then this is where the testing center from the GMT would potentially be relocated to. So if you're doing some placement and entrance placement testing, that could happen right by the one stop. And then once we get up to the third floor, this would become primarily meeting and lounge space for students, some great views and visibility out back towards student housing. That would have, again, a connector. This would be an outdoor connector across the rooftop of the connecting bridge, so you can connect back to the third floor as well to come into the space. So it's a nice little perch for students as part of this plan. So this is the green space that we're talking about in terms of where this would go. That courtyard would kind of land right here. We'd eliminate this drive that comes into this space. And we would turn that into something that looks like this. So this becomes that front door, clearly delineated as a main entrance for your campus. You start to see that courtyard coming around the backside, the glassiness looking out over this being developed where students can hang out on nice days. As we turn the corner just a bit, some signage, creating a stronger sense of entry coming into the building. So that's the idea of the student center and consolidating those functions together on campus. And then I want to talk just about a little bit about the library. So this is where the library and that clinical space would potentially connect with an entry lobby right in here. So you can come in on the clinical space, access directly in, drop somebody off for an appointment, park, they can come right back in. So you have some short-term parking developed as part of this. And then kind of looking at the library proper, you'll see how this is then connected to Building F. Is this E back over in here, I think? So those 2 points would connect, probably just at the second floor so that you can access this courtyard that's being created from the outside and creating yet another opportunity for outdoor collaboration space. So this is what that area looks like if I was on across the lake, essentially looking back towards the building where the library might land. And this is a view from inside the building. This is where that new courtyard would be, kind of looking back out towards the lake. So you can see the views that you would have if you were in this new library, kind of looking out over this beautiful pastoral, natural kind of setting. So again, some imagery of what that could begin to look like. So this is the kind of the tip of the library, starting to create some outdoor lounge space and plaza space, kind of overlooking the lake. What's that?
Our dean of the library is here today, Dean Swanson, and he's getting to see this for
Oh.
the first time, I believe. And
Remember, this is not a final plan, wherever it is.
He's willing to endorse it as.
Okay. There's a great spot for a name here. What's his name? Did you say? Swanson? I think that could fit right there perfectly. So again, just to kind of zip around here quickly so we can continue to move forward. Starting to see the edge that looks out over the lake. You start to see the engagement then with the CPA new lobby as that wraps around and starts to really create a nice edge on the north side of your campus. Again, these are all just different views, opportunities for folks to break out, sit outside, a lot of glass in the library to be able to look out over the lakefront there. And then kind of looking back towards the clinical building, that would be right back in this zone. Okay. Those are all the pretty pictures I have, so everything else is in plan. So just to zero in very briefly on the student housing development. So again, as a framework, this is where the Prairie Place facility currently exists. In terms of trying to create a sense of community with the housing development, you'll see that we created a series of bars, not knowing how quickly and how much you might build at one time. If 100 beds incrementally is what you might need, you can create these 100-bed bars to work across. If you have a need for 300, you could start to connect it into one building in some way. But the idea was to really create a small community here, a residential community. And the important aspect of this is the entry and that experience of students who are living on campus coming to the main building. Right now, what they do is they walk across this walkway here, and then they, I think, go down this roadway. They walk across a parking lot, and I think they come in a side door of Building A. And one of the things that you see here are these roadways. These are really facilities roadways for access to facilities. The idea with go back one, with this plan is if we're to create this environment here, we could access facilities from this side and clean this entire area up so that students that are walking back and forth from the new entry for your student center to the gateway into the student housing development will have a nice pathway, landscaped, lighted, banners, everything that we need without any fear of any vehicles coming back and forth. And so this is that view currently from Prairie Place back towards, and you'll see they kind of walk down, the roadways, and that could then become something that's much more inviting as they come in, and this will be their front entry as they are entering the academic part of the campus. And then also in this zone, we did talk about the Social Justice Institute, and you'll see this area right in here is identified as a spot for that facility to occur. It's right adjacent to the Handtack House. This is the existing Hantack House, so off to the left-hand side is where the facility would occur, and this is the Alumni Way for access from the train station. And again, parking is right here and readily accessible. So just in terms of scale, here's the Hantack House, and here's where that 4,500 square foot facility could land. And you can see coming down on the main drive, that visibility of that space. And then lastly, again, just in terms of scale, looking at the athletics complex, you'll see the two soccer fields, baseball and softball with seating, centralized concessions and toilet facilities back in here, a new field house that would be nicely visible. So this is your main drive coming around campus. So as you're coming around the corner, you start to see that. This drive that stops right here now could continue, create a separate parking area back in this zone. And then if there is a need for an indoor multi-turf field, that could land right in here and create a plaza in between these spaces as well. And then this would, if this road were to occur off of Drawley, that could become a nice access point so folks aren't going through campus when there's major events in this facility. We kept the costs really small so you couldn't see them. But I think you all have the handouts. But it's probably just important on this slide to understand a few things. Number one, there was some discussion about prioritization. These numbers off on the left-hand side are the priorities that were identified by the steering committee, by the cabinet, in terms of where the need would be and what they'd like to see happen first. So it's library, conference center, student center, social justice institute, phase one, the academic expansion, athletic complexes down a little bit lower, CPA lobby, clinical space, then some housing you can see is pretty far down the list here, and some of the other site components. What we've done is to try to create a cost model just for planning purposes, put costs for construction, furnishings, equipment, everything you might need. If it's a project that might be state funded, we've added all the state fees that would be in there. And then Dr. Bradford also has populated this last column with potential funding sources. So if these projects become real and a priority, where's the primary target to start looking for funds to make those projects happen? Okay. That's everything related to new construction, which is a plan. And so what we know is if all of that happens over time, there'd be a lot of space inside the existing building that would vacate because it would go into some of these new facilities, like all these student service functions would move out. The library would move out, and each one of these would vacate a certain amount of square footage. So when we look at all three levels, we would vacate approximately 72,000 square feet of existing space, okay? As we met with each of the groups and we identified what their needs were and kind of vetted that with the administration, you can see here that there's the need for growth when you add everything up of approximately 44,000 square feet of additional space. We also talked about the type of learning environment that exists outside of classrooms and trying to do something maybe a little bit different with the corridor system and the fabric that kind of weaves everything together on your campus and upgrading corridors. Creating spaces like this, maybe group study rooms, wider corridors so that students can engage and meet with folks, some smaller areas for breakout. And so we've identified some space for growth of those facilities. So what we know is we're vacating, if all of that new construction occurred, just under 72,000 square feet. That programmatic growth on that overall list is about 45,000 square feet. The classroom growth that we talked about at the very beginning represents about 10,000 square feet of growth. And the group study collaboration space corridor enhancements is about 15,000 square feet. When you add these three together, you're just under 70,000 square feet. So we're within about 2,000 square feet of the space that would vacate as a result of the new construction and the potential backfill into those areas. So there's a lot of different ways that can all be backfilled. And so we know that there's certain components that we're not going to touch. We're not going to touch your Performing Arts Center. We're not going to touch any of the computer labs that are here. We're not going to touch any of your science labs that were recently renovated. We're not going to touch your food service. We also know that there's some other things that are able to be renovated and will likely need to be, whether they're vacated because they're new construction or they're spaces that need to expand and adjust based on need. So when we started looking at a test fit, and that's all you're going to see here is just a test fit, it kind of started with the discussion of circulation and making sure that the circulation through the campus, knowing again that existing circulation has your front door right here on the first floor, knowing that the second floor, there's a disconnect. So if you're on this part of the second floor and you want to get here, you have to go downstairs, go over, and you have to come back up again because there's that disconnect. And kind of looking at the potential new circulation and trying to clean it up a bit with a new front entry for your student center and looking at how things can start to make a little bit more sense. So we started to create that. We looked at the classrooms and started with those components because that's such a major piece of your campus. And we're using the 53 and we're using this 900 square feet. So there's only so many areas that we can fit 900 square foot classrooms in between your 30 by 30 columns that exist. So we populated those and we distributed those in a way that seemed to make some sense. And you can see in the first floor, up on the second floor, and you'll see that all these classrooms are right-sized and they're going to give you the kind of learning environment that you need. And then up on the third floor here. And then once we knew the revised circulation, where the classrooms are going to land, the components that we know we're not going to move, we then developed a test fit where we took all of the needs for all those other areas that we discussed, and we dealt with adjacencies and efficiencies, opportunities for collaboration between various programs. And that's what this plan begins to represent, where those pieces begin to land. And again, it's a roadmap for kind of moving forward. And so as need arises, you can reference this plan and begin to look at, does this make sense? If this is a long-term, resting place for a particular program, let's look at making it happen in that spot. That's all I have, yes.
So why does it take you 2 years to put together?
Thank you so much for your hard work. Questions or comments from any of the other trustees?
I'm looking for numbers.
Could you get closer?
Yes, I'm looking for numbers, costs.
Yes, that was, I can zip up to there real quick, and that's the one I had indicated. The text is a little small, but each one of the projects or potential ideas, it takes just a second to catch up here.
And this was a.
It's on one of the slides.
Slide 70, $250 million.
Yeah, no, but what I'm looking for is kind of like a phase out of a budget per year basis, or not the overall cost, as if the legislature was going to fund it all at once. So it's a multi-year, kind of, that tells me what the priorities, and it's difficult for me to have an impression of how realistic this is from the other side. And I don't know how we address that.
Well, just to clarify, when we approve the master plan, we're approving a concept design. We're not approving a budget to move forward with building all this stuff. Am I correct? So these estimates, even these numbers, these are concept costs that have to be further vetted out as each one of these proposals, the new library presumably first, that would have to be really drilled into of is this the time to build it? Is this the right cost? Do we have the right funding for it, et cetera, at that point in time? Is that correct? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not approving
No, no,
a
well,
half
of course.
quarter of $1 billion.
No, no, of course not.
Because that's not what this is,
So
right? And I think, yes.
let's hear from Dr. Bradford on the finance side, of on what we should expect to know at this stage, trustee Taboas, because I'm not sure if what you're grasping for, and I understand it, is available at this stage of the development. But let's let Dr.
Yeah,
Bradford.
but it just,
Okay.
I'm not looking for the, kind of, I realize this is a state, and that there's the Higher Education Commission, lots of people have a role in this. I'm just trying to get an idea, in the feds, we call this a ho-ho test. Is this laughable? Is this kind of something that we want to line up behind and defend and look for opportunities? Like there's a budget veto session coming up. Kind of, what is the timetable? So I'm looking for a gut feel that I haven't been able to get yet. And I don't know if I'm expressing myself properly here.
Dr. Bradford, go ahead.
Yeah, with master plans, you're gonna fund projects from a variety of sources of resources. There's gonna be support that comes from the state. There's gonna be some decisions this board has to make about issuing debt to fund some of these projects. There's resources that come from fundraising for projects. And so all of those things will come into play to determine when we do which project. Okay, yes, we have our priorities, but when funding becomes available, that's when we do a specific project. And so each project pretty much stands on its own, right? And so if we get funding from the state, let's say they say we're gonna fund the library project, okay? That's gonna be done in 2025. We'll develop those plans. That cost estimate might be different from what the actual plan come back in, right? But this gives you an overview of our estimate at this point in time to complete this full project. It's gonna be basically $250 million, which is reasonable given the scale and the scope that we want to do for this institution, okay? This is not out of the norm, okay? And what we have to focus on is what piece of this program do we control as an institution? And that's the debt issuance. How do we want to use our capital reserves to fund some of these projects? Those are the things that are in the control of the board in which projects we can do and not the state. Now, like, the state won't do athletic projects. I'll tell you that right now. That's not something the state will fund. So if we want to do an athletic complex, that's going to be a board decision that we would invest in that kind of project. The state won't build housing as well. That's another project that the state will not be, but the state will support educational programs, okay? Educational buildings. And so those are projects that we will have to advocate for. We would need the members of the board to advocate for those educational projects because it's been a long time since the state has built a new educational facility on this campus. And so I think that our project's been on that capital list for a long time, and so we need to try to make progress in getting some of those approved.
So one more follow-up question on that. Trustee Brookins asked the question, what exactly are we voting on? We're not voting on moving forward with every single project because we need to still address the funding of it, and some of them are already on the list. They've already been requested. They're already in the queue.
Yes.
And they may have already even been approved, although not yet funded. So, but what this board has asked for and what has been delivered is, what is the plan? Because every time something comes to us, it's kind of like piecemeal. We're like, well, where's the whole plan and how does this fit? And so this is the proposed whole plan. But we're still in the future, just like we have in the past, we're still going to have to make decisions about individual projects within the whole plan, but this is what the administration, based on stakeholder input, is putting forward as the plan, right? Did I capture that?
Exactly.
Dr. Schneller?
Thank you. I would like to enter into the conversation from the vantage point of academic affairs and what this plan presents for the future of learning at Governor State. And so that's how I would answer the question, what are you voting on? In a couple of ways, because one of the things that that Dominic pointed out repeatedly was the repurposing of the spaces or building around, building through things that we already have. So the plan has been very mindful of limiting disruption to the physical buildings. You can't do anything about the columns, obviously, but we can do a lot with the increased class size, the furniture we put into those spaces. But in looking at the plan, I think what we're really looking at is how we create what's called in entrepreneurship the maker space model. So when you look at this plan, you're approving spaces where learning can happen. You're approving constructs with names like library, classroom, student center. But this model provides a footprint for what a holistic environment for learning can look like across the whole campus. So every space can be used for learning when it's outfitted with the right kind of tools. And so that's another important part of this activity, is to think about how we meet the needs returning from the post-COVID environment for learning that has been focused on traditional chairs and rows and desks, to how we now learn and how we do things in those open spaces that this plan calls for. And so I think as we look at the plan, there's a desire, because it's architecturally based, to see it in terms of the labels that the rooms will have. But the reality is this allows us to grow into a very well-designed footprint for learning and for development and professional growth, community engagement, for a lot of different types of activities that will continue to strengthen the reputation and brand of Governor State.
Thank you.
So I have a question. So Dr. Green has resisted in raising tuition for students. She has been very fair and equitable with us where that's concerned. Would any of this cause student fees or tuition to increase?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. It may, in terms of fees. You know, if the students vote in a referendum
And
for a
that's-
new student center, then that would require maybe some student fee increase in order to build that student center.
With the emphasis on if the students vote to support it.
Okay. Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, this board would review and approve all of that at that point in time. So these are, as the chair, acting chair communicated, we're not approving any projects here. We're just trying to get a better understanding of when these projects come to us. Some have already come to us. Where do they fit in an overall concept? Right. It's just the concept. There's no doubt. In a project plan, you have scope, schedule, and cost. There's no scope, schedule, or cost being sought to be approved here at this point in time. Each scope, schedule, and cost will be approved individually for each project.
Correct, thank you.
Just one quick question is that these are the current $2,002, right? There is no escalation for future projects, even though that we know that they are going to be built 10 years from now.
Right. Well, you know, I questioned Dominic on some of his estimates, so I'm sure he got some escalated factor calculated in his
Yeah,
numbers.
these numbers here are today's numbers, and they're escalated, but they're escalated to accommodate for today's dollars
For
from
today's dollars.
the last 2 years where things have gone up
So
25%.
even if we magically were able to build everything by the time that we design and build and
Right.
get the money, these costs could be 30, 40, 50% higher.
And that's a good point. If this is going to be a document that you're going to reference over the next 8 to 10 years before you update, The master plan, again, every year that you go by, that goes by, if you're in year 6, you can't go back to this document and say, well, looks like a library is $40 million. It's going to be 40 million plus 6 years of escalation. So whenever you decide, or if you decide.
Assuming we approve that scope.
Assuming you approve, that's right. Exactly. And so, exactly right. The scope and the budgets and the dollars all need to be approved based on the actual program at the time, where it goes, how it's built.
So knowing that this is just a plan of what the administration would like to see be the plan, what else would you need to see or know before we take a vote? Is there additional information? We asked for some related to the athletics and the housing today. Is there additional information that you would need before you will be prepared so that we can move forward? Not today, but in between now and the next time. Trustee Taboas?
I would be interested in seeing kind of a projection as to a number of students or what, because presumably this facilitates kind of
Growth.
with a greater population. I'm just trying to guesstimate what the assumption on this is. I mean, is this ballpark 10% growth over the next X years?
So if I may paraphrase, so how does this align with our student enrollment plan?
Right.
Where is there an intersection? Is that something we can work on? Because there is a strategic enrollment plan in process, and it's, yeah,
Just
it's,
merging it or whatever.
so
it is.
how does that fit?
Right.
That's a good question. Okay. Anything else that we would need?
Yeah, I made a comment about my concerns about the Family Development Center, and I accept your answer. I know what you're talking about. Are there any other sub-areas of the university we haven't looked at as part of this? We pretty much got all bases covered. We have a good feel for that, or?
I believe we've talked to everybody we needed to. John, right, you went through.
We've talked to every department, every department in every college, and invited everybody through a series of 40 meetings. Had some additional special meetings with the deans, a couple of those, just to verify that they were okay with what was being requested in their department. And then there's the steering committee and the cabinet meetings that we had. So there was close to 100% involvement from this university of the folks who wanted to be involved.
Thank you.
So for other questions, does it warrant you revisiting anything? I think a lot of the things we just asked about were clarifications and background. Do you have to go back and redo any adjustments based on the comments and stuff you had here?
You know, I'm thinking of the things that you guys are asking. We're going to have to work with housing, Paul and Mushtaq, and for, a needs assessment of students, and of course, for athletics too. So that may not be so much Dominic doing that. That may be others.
Yeah, and if that study results in anything that's different in terms of the need, and that needs to be reflected in the master plan that you ultimately approve, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I will offer, in addition to just a little bit more perspective on how it aligns with the strategic enrollment plan, a little more information around the athletic complex and the housing complex. I would also really appreciate understanding if there's a phased approach to the athletic program, just like you offered, there's a phased approach to the housing program. Because I didn't see that. Maybe there is one, but I didn't hear it and I didn't see that.
In this listing here, and you may not be able to see it, but you can see that each one of these fields and the buildings all have a separate line item associated with them. And you can build those at any point in any order that you would want them to be built.
Well, but if this is the plan, I would like to understand what the requested priority is. And I
Of those, right.
recognize that priorities change over time, but if this is the plan now, what are the priorities?
Yeah, we can get you that because first priority for athletics is the soccer field. We have a soccer team now, and they need a field to play on. Right now, they're traveling to both home games and away games. And so that would be first priority in terms of the athletic sports complex. And as Paul brings on different athletic teams, naturally, we want to have their fields, in that priority order as well.
Absolutely. So over the 5 years, we were very systematic in what we were introducing. We first started the first year just making sure our rosters were full. The second year, it was about bringing on what's called varsity reserve. It's equivalent to like JV. The only difference is JV, at some point, you're locked into one team or the other. But with the NAIA, you can continually go up and down between those two teams. So in essence, that allowed us to create 4 additional teams for basketball, men and women's, and for soccer, men and women's, as well as volleyball. So we kind of looked at what can we do within our own means without expanding the overhead. So those were our first steps. The next step is really about the additional sports, but as Dr. Bradford talked about, soccer kind of got caught in that window where the athletic plan was moving faster than, let's say, the master plan. So now we're in need of that soccer field. But in the future, we're really focused on, the idea of track, and it's not field, just distance running and short-term running. We're also looking at women's softball, we're looking at men's baseball, we're looking at a variety of different sports. We've looked at the league, we've looked at the conference, and we've looked at the recruitment and the growth of those sports. That's why we selected all of those. So they're all high-growth sports, and we are at capacity with our varsity teams, and we're near capacity with our JV teams. That's why I was quoting the, hopefully 240 range for this fall. So we're going to stagger that, and then we'll introduce those programs appropriately, given that funds would be available to introduce either baseball at a certain point or softball at a certain point. And if we're not ready fund-wise, then we would have to just seek maybe external rentals in order to do that until that came to fruition.
Thank you. I mean, it's clear that you have a priority list. I just want to make sure that we have an understanding at a summary level, not at the detail level of what that is, so that I can make an informed decision. I guess I'll just speak for myself, but so the rest of you can too.
And if, Dr. Green, you would like, I'd be happy to come back and present that plan to the Board of Trustees. So we could take away the mystery behind it, so to
Yeah,
speak.
and I will convey to Chair Harrell that we're definitely in need in one additional conversation before we vote, so that we can clarify these issues. Or maybe we can do it at the same time, I don't know, but I'll leave that to.
I don't think the athletics master plan will be as lengthy as the facilities master plan. So.
No, and that's okay. We're just looking for executive level, high level points.
Okay,
Thank you.
we can do that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
If something occurs to us after we leave here, which is usually the case, so who we send comments to, or questions to?
Dr. Green, no, just kidding.
Send it to me.
Okay. I'm not saying we won't, I'm just saying sometimes we need to digest it a little bit.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's a great question that occurs to us as soon as we climb in our cars.
Thank you.
If you send it to me, I will be asking John or Dominic or Corey, so take your pick.
And I just to follow up on the athletics discussion, I think that's a perfect reason why you need a master plan, because as you started looking at your soccer field location initially, in the absence of a master plan, you were looking at putting that somewhere right in here, correct? Somewhere in this vicinity.
Yeah, I think if you get over the gas pipeline, you'll hit it.
Yeah. So, so that's why as you look at everything holistically,
Yeah.
you get a much better sense on how it fits in with everything else And so now if you're going to build a soccer field, you probably won't build it right in here because you may have a building. You may not want to be over the pipeline, and you may want to think about creating more of a complex. So that, I think that's a really good example as to why and how a master plan will inform your decision-making.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, not only for today, but for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
It's been
really
fun.
appreciate it. Under challenging conditions, to say the least.
Yes, no
right?
doubt.
Yeah, so thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Okay, So I just want to acknowledge, we received reports from the Faculty Senate as well as the Student Senate, and I want to thank not only those representatives, but those bodies for all of their work, and especially the Faculty Senate and the Academic Review Committee in particular. I read that report and saw how much work that was, and thank you very much. And thank you for preparing those reports for us. And I think that's it. Is there any old business?
Need for closed session, are we good?
There is no need for closed session, so,
Darn.
thank you. Is there any old business? Any new business?
No.
Okay, again, I want to thank everyone, and I know it's been a long meeting, but thank you for those who presented today, and congratulations again to those professors who earned tenure. We're very happy for you. It's a big life achievement, right? So
Indeed.
hope you celebrate. With that, I will take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved. Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. That concludes our meeting.
You.
Let's go now. This is good. Good seeing you.